Hello, I'm Blackbright, and as you know, this is a series of interviewing inspirational people in Luton, the go-to people in Luton. And today I have Deborah, aka Knight. She's actually the daughter of the ex-mayor of Luton and his wife. So I consider her quite prestigious. And so I just wanted to ask you, if people wanted to go to you, what would they be coming to you for?
Oh wow, we do a variety of different things. So Ninewood was set up to respond to the needs of our local community and to be community governed and community led. So it is any form of community service that people might have an idea that might help that community, and then we will try to find the funding and the support and the opportunities to make it happen.
Okay.
So it's a lots of different projects, but they all kind of like stem from what the community has identified as a need that they have. And it's trying to bridge as many gaps as possible.
Okay.
It's that kind of idea. That's really what Ninewood does. So if you think about, like, I go from my own personal experience, and then obviously I'm black, I'm female, been a victim of domestic violence, I have a disability. So that generally tends to be what I put out into the world. So it's anything that is art, anything culture, well-being, heritage, anything that helps a person to recover from trauma, anything that helps them to identify and heal, recover, and actually get to the point where they can recognise their authentic self. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have had a trauma or have to be suffering some kind of discrimination or abuse. It's just somebody that wants to know who they are and be able to self-actualise. And it's that kind of process. It's just about, really and truthfully, in my opinion, a lot of what I feel is wrong with the world is people's inability to love themselves. People not knowing that it is actually vital that you love yourself first, because then you can't deliver, you can't be. So it's about helping people to find who they are and what their purpose is.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. So, Luton, what brought you to Luton, or your mother to Luton, your parents in Luton?
Why are we in Luton?
Yeah, why are you in Luton as opposed to anywhere else, and as adults you're still in Luton?
So the story of my family is simply this. My parents lived in Harrow, Masons Avenue. They had my eldest brother and my eldest sister. After my sister died of car death, my dad worked for British Rail and he got on the train, and the train literally terminated at Luton, and that's why he decided to move to Luton. And that was
really?
That's why
wow, that's an interesting reason.
Yeah, that is.
So it terminated, and what did he do? He had to get off.
He got off. He got off and he walked around. It was literally, I think that was his way of dealing with grief or understanding what the next stage of his journey was going to be. I just don't know. He worked for Cricklewood Broadway. He got on the train.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
It terminated at Luton, and he was just like, this is where he was going to start his new life and his new family.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's why he's here, and that's why I'm here then. And I love Luton. I have travelled. I have lived in many, many, many different places, but I love Luton primarily because people forget to love it.
But what's it mean to you, Luton? What does it actually mean for you?
It's home. It's home. It is always going to be, no matter. I mean, I grew up loving New York. I still love New York. I know it's a little different now to what it was when, I knew it in the 90s and the early noughties. But I had this compulsion and this fascination, and I was a writer, and I enjoyed being there in the place where rap was born and why it was born and what that meant to the people. And because I was at university there, I went to stay with my boyfriend who's on a basketball scholarship. Mm-hmm. So I was meeting people from all over America, in New Jersey, traveling to Philadelphia, traveling to New York, seeing all these basketball games and getting a real understanding of what rap actually meant to the people who created it.
Okay.
And it was like, we have a voice here in Luton.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted us to find that, rather than it be how it feels to me that we have a idea of who we are, an identity of who we should mm-hmm. be actually thrust upon us. I could see how empowering it was by people creating their own voice, their own art, and becoming themselves, you know, and rather than it being like transported here and we're adopting it but not really, we're identifying with it because we're always going to identify with anything that is black, but it wasn't our voice. And then at the same time you have people coming in from outside not loving what's here and trying to improve it, and you can't improve on something that you don't love, right? So it became, I was in New York, I was recovering from trauma. I was listening to Eve, she was one of the Rough Riders. This is when she was coming out, and Love is Blind, right? So Love is Blind became the anthem of my recovery, but also on the album was Philly, Philly. And it's like, Philly is where I am from. Okay. And a line in there as well that says, you know, no one opened up the door, I had to knock that bitch right off his hinges.
When you said Philly is where you're from, where do you mean? Philadelphia?
Yeah, Philadelphia, that's the line in the song. Yeah. And it's like, and so they're doing the rap, and during the chorus, I think there's a bridge, and they're like, Philly is where I'm from. And, you know, if you can imagine, I'm there with students and they're engaging in this because it's them and it's there and that's where they are. And I'm engaging in it from the outside, and I'm like recovering from this trauma and finding myself, understanding that Luton is where I am from. Luton is what made me. Yeah, okay. I was born, raised and raised in Luton. Everything that I am, everything that I will ever be is going to be because of that. And that gave me an enormous pride, because I could see the pride that they had in their place. No matter how tragic the stories, no matter what was going on, there was a pride there. And it was like, you know, I went to school and everything was like Luton's looking up. We always had a project and it was always about what was wrong with Luton, what was wrong with Luton. And it was just like, being in New York let me see all that was right with Luton.
And what did you find that was right with Luton?
The people. It's the people. The people who endure, who overcome, who pull together. We have an enormous community spirit. You know, something happens, we pull together. And it is always the community first. No matter who's on the top, whoever is leading, it is always the community that leads first. And I think people have forgotten the importance of community, or forgotten what that feels like, or understands it, because everyone has an online community. Yeah. You know, but we had a community right here where, like, you know, I've had an illness, I've been ill, I've collapsed in the street and strangers have helped me up. You know, that's not something that you can see all over the world, right? Yeah, there are places people will step right over you and carry on, And I think people don't necessarily see those things. No, we haven't got all the high street shops and all the nightclubs and all the great places to go out, but what we have is a place where love lives, and that's more important. You know?
And I can really identify with that, because I came to where I live in Dunstable, and I was told it was really racist, and I came with reservations. And when I got this place, I didn't kind of think to myself that it was. I didn't know I was in Dunstable, to be honest. I didn't know where I was. I just followed the map to this destination. But I remember looking at my next door neighbour, who had a bald head, looked quite mean. And the one next door, they looked quite mean. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be in the middle of people who don't like me. But the amazing thing is that, you know, my next door neighbour will do anything for me. All I've got to do is say, can you come over? Can you do this? They move my bin. If I forget to take it out, they take it out. So I get that. I mean, that you really feel a part of like a family. So I totally understand that.
I must just, and I want to be careful how I say this, because I have to be careful. It's like when you say about, you know, everyone has their issues with racism. You know, I went to an all-white school. You know, there were issues. There were great people, fantastic people who supported me, helped me become who I am, but there were issues. But even with moving into my parents' house, when they first moved here, you know, their whole street wanted to buy the house to prevent my parents from moving in. And they left the keys with the estate agent. The estate agent left the keys with my neighbours, because it was bank holiday weekend. And they refused to give them the keys. And my dad had to break the door, like literally threatened. He said, it's my house, I'm going to break the window to get in, because I can replace the window. You know, that's level of hostility was there when my parents moved in. And yet my dad was still voting councillor night. right? So you have always got these elements
resistance.
There's always going to be somebody that's got some discrimination about something, some bias. And I think sometimes, you know, over time, like we have relationships with all of our neighbours now, you know, like over time people begin to see people, and I think sometimes that's what's important, is that, you know, if you only know another culture from what's been thrown at you from TV with whatever that agenda is, you can end up in that kind of environment, this kind of standoff where everybody, I mean, look at how we are now, to be fair. Everybody's been taught to fear everybody else. Nobody talks to their neighbours because they're frightened, they don't understand. And I think the thing that really drives me, what really gives me so much passion is about Luton, is that you can meet anyone from anywhere all over the world, and they can be your best friend or your enemy, and it is your choice to decide. Exactly. It really is about the way that you approach them, whether you're going to have beautiful neighbours and a beautiful family and a beautiful community, or whether you're going to have hostility and conflict. And I think it really does come down to, what is your attitude about the place in which you live?
Yeah, definitely. And I think people feed off of that, and they do feel comfortable. And I think it's for them feeling comfortable and, you know, trying to get rid of all those myths and stereotypes. So tell me a little bit about your childhood, adolescence that has shaped you into who you are today.
The way you interviewed me, the way you introduced me on this video, that has shaped who I am today. Right? It's why I hate labels. I grew up as Councillor Knight's daughter, and everybody thinks they know what it means without having a conversation with me.
Okay.
Right? That has shaped my world in so many ways, because of the assumptions and because of the stereotypes, because of people think they know my life because I'm Councillor Knight's daughter. And, you know, I grew up, my mum raised us, you know, they both, she had 2-3 jobs, she was struggling, you know, we used to eat broken biscuits, all my clothes were hand-me-downs, I never had any of the brands, it was just like, but people felt that they could call me out on that because I was Councillor Knight's daughter, and there was an expectation, you know, that, who I should be and how I should be able to dress, you know, but my parents were struggling to pay their mortgage and working 3-4 jobs, you know, the same experiences everybody else had as a black person. We were having as black people. My dad was just Councillor Knight. And then sometimes it got hard because we get the push from both sides.
Yes, expectations,
you know? Right? And on my head, I grew up on my head that it's kind of like my responsibility, because I have going to have these opportunities that other people may not necessarily have. I'm going to have doors open. They're not open. Please don't think that people open doors for me. You know, like I said, I love that song for the reason. I love that song, you know, but I knew that there are certain things, certain people I get to meet, and rather than like sitting in the room and thinking about or talking to these people and how they can help me, I'm thinking about how they can help my entire community, because that was how I was raised. I was raised to be to share, shall we say? You know, it's we are all in this together, and I think, you know, the sharp reality is that, like, while I was in all of this with us together, that many people around me were just in it for themselves, and that can be a very difficult lesson to learn as a child.
It is hard, you know,
because you think the people in your world are thinking the way that you do. We're all in this together, and you know, it's not necessarily like that. So it has shaped who I am, but the one thing that it is giving me is resilience.
Okay.
You know, and I will take the risks. I will do, because I don't care. You know, I've always been on the outside. You know, I've never been in the clique. I've always had to fend for myself. I've always had to find my way. And I think one of the things was that I was a politician's daughter, and I just didn't want to join in society's pretense, you know, because from the outside everyone's like, oh, this person, this person. But to me, they're just people.
It's like, you know, I understand what you mean.
You know, and it's like, I just wanted to be real, I wanted to be authentic, and I wanted to be able to use whatever skills, ability and talent that I had to pull people forwards, to just be able to advance the community as a whole. And I think what shaped me the most was I went to a school in Luton, and then I went to a school in the village. And I think this was the thing that was perhaps the most impactful for me, was because I don't mean this the way it's going to sound, but pretty much the school I was going to before, it was all bells. You responded to bells. Every time a bell went, yeah, okay. Every time a bell went, you had to move somewhere else. And your essay questions might as well have just been, you know, how do you spell minimum wage, right? And I go to another school and it's kind of like the essays there are like, pretend you're Julius Caesar and you are leading your people into battle. And you have this sharp difference between educational styles within like miles of each other. Amazing. And it became very clear to me that there is a definite funneling, you know, and that if I was going to have this opportunity to be educated in this way, and I was going to be able to see another side and be able to advance in that way, it was like, how could I take all of this knowledge and bring it back to there? Because these are my friends, my family, my people, you know. And I think that solidified in me in so many ways how important that it is that we all co-create and co-collaborate, because we are not given equal opportunities. We are not given a fair chance. And even those of us that it might seem, oh, you got to go to this good school, like that weren't no bunch of roses, you know. It wasn't very easy. It was, you know, you still are dealing with discrimination, and the difference is you're dealing with that discrimination on your own. You haven't got any backup, and you have to teach other people to be your backup, to be your protector, to understand, you know, that you're saying that's wrong, that's offensive. And, you know, it reaches a point when you kind of see like someone over there says something and then this person over there corrects them, and you're just like, okay, now it's flowing and it's moving through, and it's like I have the ability to send that out into the world, into a community that I wouldn't be able to touch, that probably wouldn't even stand side by side with white people, because I'm the only black person that they know, and there's 700 students in this school. So, you know, sometimes it feels like you have a responsibility, because you can't leave them to go out in the world, because they're going to affect these other people, you know, and you were the person that was in the room that could have corrected them at that time. So, you know, my life was kind of shaped in this, have responsibility for the people who you can take with you, you know. And they used to come from the elders. You know what it's like. The elders are always on your back with, like, you know, like training to be a barrister because black people need black barristers.
Yeah,
you know?
They need representation.
It's that. And it's like, so much of my life never felt like it was my own, because I had these responsibilities to other people. Okay. You know? And that's still what I ended up doing with 9 Red. So
that places us nicely with 9 Red. What directed you to 9 Red? As if I need to ask.
But all of that I said, but I think really what struck me was, you know, when I walked into the casino, just because I wanted a break. I had been through, like I said, I was still healing, I was still recovering, I was still trying to work out where I fit, because, you know, there wasn't a community that opened their arms up and accepted me, you know. So it was like trying to figure myself out. And I walked into the casino, and the thing that I loved about it was that there were all these different people from all these different backgrounds. And it's like, when I say all these different backgrounds, because croupiers, they travel, right? So they're on the ships, or they're in different countries, and so you are meeting people, you know, they might be German, married to a South African, worked in America, you know, or somebody else is from out of Mongolia and they're married to a Russian and they're living in Australia, you know. And you got to see how all of these cultures blended and had so similarities, and you could see the lines that they all, and just I'm at work playing games with strangers all night, and I'm learning about them and their cultures. And I think it was the first sort of time that I was able to, like, as a Caribbean person, you're like, well, you know, Christopher Columbus didn't discover the Caribbean, and he got it wrong because he called it the West Indies. The West Indies surely can't exist because it's not the West Indies, it's in the Caribbean Sea. And you have that from your culture. But then, because you're meeting these people from all the other cultures now, and they're talking about who we go to school learning as heroes, and they're talking about how they're pirates, right? And so I was seeing how there are all these different truths of all these different stories, and there's all these different backgrounds, and I could start to see how people were who they were, why they were who they were. And I just had so much fun and so much joy, and I kind of just wanted to connect all the jobs. I wanted people to be able to see how we are all one. And if you take a step back and are able to observe, observe yourself rather than just participate in it, but actually see everything that's going on around you, you can see the threads that connect everyone. You can see how we all started from this one place and we just splintered off. And that was something that I wanted to put in play form.
So how did you come up with the name Nine Red?
Roulette.
Oh, really? Wow.
And 9 red is one of the numbers on the roulette wheel.
Okay.
It's Orphanines, a section of the wheel, and it touches number 6. So I was born on the 6th of April.
Okay.
And I'm an Aries.
Okay.
Ruling planet Mars, ruling colour 9. Number 9,
it all
the
makes
colour
sense.
red.
It all makes
Aries,
sense.
the warrior. My last name's Knight, and I'm ruled by Mars. And Aries, the warrior signs. Ra, my name is Debra. Ra. And I was just like, everything for me just kind of fell into place with that. And I think because like with roulette, you've got like the various different sections, like there's one with the 0 and then you've got TM and then orphanings. They're all the bits on the outside, the bits that don't fit in the other two. And that's kind of how I feel. I feel like a bit on the outside that doesn't really fit anywhere. And 6 and 9 are both those. And fell into orphanings, and I was just like, it matches me. And because obviously I started 9 Red with Gordon, he works in the casino, he was my inspector buddy. And we created 9 Red, and we wanted something that connected us. So therefore, a number of the roulette wheel made sense. And because of my particular branch of spirituality, 9 Red was the perfect number.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. So what does 9 Red do? I mean, I know you've said, is it got anything specific that it does?
Oh, yeah. So we work with victims of domestic and sexual violence. That was our AVS project, the Abuse Victim Project. That's probably one of our most known projects. But it wasn't simply just about working one-on-one. It's art medicine. So we literally use art as therapy.
I love that term, art medicine.
Yeah. So that's basically what it is. And wanting to also, using my roots as carnival background, raise awareness. So, our AVS troop went out and raised awareness of domestic violence against women, girls, but everyone, because that was one of the things that we wanted with the AVS project, is that people don't appreciate how many male victims there are. And like black men are more likely than white women to become victims of domestic violence, no matter who gets to the police first, and no matter how it is being reported. Black men are substantially more likely to be victims of domestic violence than white women in this country. And America has a study. Britain doesn't have a study, but America has a study. You can Google it and you can see. And then it came into issues of like transgender. It was anyone that fell through the gaps, really. Anyone that didn't have a service that was catering for their need. And so that's what we wanted to raise awareness of, this whole system and what needed to happen. I mean, when I had the experience that I experienced and I had counselling, the counsellor clearly wasn't trained. I mean, she sat knee to knee and was staring at me eye to eye because her previous experience was helping somebody overcome addiction, and it was so uncomfortable. And, I used to turn up at sessions with like a cup of tea in my hand just to give myself a barrier. And talking to more and more victims, people were like, the healing process was more damaging than the actual event that happened. The process with the police, the process with doctors, that like taking you seriously of what it is that you've experienced, how you've experienced it, and actually being able to allow you to voice it in your own words without actually somebody telling you, oh, you're feeling that because of this. No, I'm feeling that because of this is how I'm feeling, and I don't want you to science me. I don't want you to psychoanalyze me. I'm basically saying this was wrong, this happened, and I need help getting over that. And, I was medicated so much that, I didn't even cry when my grandmother died. It just, I had no feeling, and like people talking about, if you're medicated, taking medications. I'm not saying about taking medications.
I know what you mean.
But it got to the point where we started having more and more conversations, and then the AVS project kind of literally just sprang up out of that. But, we started off just as a poet and a DJ, wanting to be able to raise awareness of whatever injustice existed at the time, because people always listen to art, you know. Somebody always is going to find the message that's in there, and that was really what it is. So we started off doing that. We did the play. I did Death of a Woman, and that kind of encouraged people to kind of like come and speak to me about how they can heal from, you know, whatever trauma. And then I started seeing the families and the friends who are having difficulty dealing with the person who, you know, coping with the fact that their family member had experienced this trauma. And then we just started branching out into like anything mild to moderate mental health issues, you know, for anybody that needed help and concern. And that really is primarily what it was that we were doing. But we do, because we respond to the need, and it was like, this is what we need right now, this is what this person needs, this is that. So sometimes it might be that people needed skill attainment, they needed education, they needed signposting to things, and it just kind of evolved to the point where we were running lots of different projects, and kind of the whole, yes, raise awareness, but also about empowering. It was just about, even if you can't do, but be empowered to speak, you know. And that was why we started, just to literally respond to needs. And now, like, we run different projects, and we run art projects, wellbeing projects, culture projects, heritage projects.
And what did you get the Queen's Award for?
120 hours a week voluntary service.
Wow.
that was basically it, you know. When it comes to volunteering, that is what we do. We go without food, we go without electric, we don't go on holiday, we don't go, like, people are in the clubs and we're saving the money because we want to put on a community festival. You know, when everyone's in the clubs at the weekends, we're saving that money to pay for DBS checks or public liability insurance. You know, we sacrificed everything for our community. You know, that's the Queen's Award. I mean, they fought for us, you know, to get
Who's they?
Oh, the Lord Lieutenant and the Deputy Lieutenants of Bedfordshire, you know, and various other different people, you know, those people who nominated us, like Led Zeppelin, Marcia Walker, they nominated us. But it has to go through the DLs and Deputy Lieutenants, and like Helen Nellis, the Lord Lieutenant of Lieutenant of Bedfordshire, and then it goes to the Cabinet Office, etc., etc. So, you know, they fought for us. And I think because they thought having the Queen's Award would open up more funding, open up opportunities, because I did kind of find that in the years after, like 2016, 2017, lots of times.
So when did you get the award?
We got the award in 2016. April. When was it announced? 1st of May. Officially announced 1st of May. So we got that, and then we had the ceremony in the October. And then, you know, in the following years, it was like, how you know, how's the funding going? How's the opportunities going? And
Has it opened doors?
No. You know, like, and they kept asking, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, until we had the Black Lives Matter movement last year, right? They don't ask me anymore. I think it's kind of like understood now, because you know, I've seen what has happened to groups that have been given the Queen's Award after us, and I know what happened with the ones that came before. And like I'm saying,
is there a lot of organisations in Luton that's got the Queen's Award then?
There are.
Oh really?
There are. There are a few.
Oh okay. I've only known about yours.
There are a few. I know Signposts has definitely got it now. Diverse FM had it before us.
Okay.
I know those.
Okay. That's but
I know that there are a few. I mean, more in Bedfordshire than maybe perhaps in Luton, and it is quite new as well. And you know, I think more groups will start to see as word gets round as well. You know, you just have to be a volunteer organisation. Think about what happens at a Carnival Arts Centre. What about those troops every year? You know, there are criteria that you have to meet, but it's there. You know, Luton is a community that is very strong with volunteering. You know,
so it didn't really open up any doors. It's just really to recognise what you actually did. Okay, so who is Deborah Knight? Everybody laughs when I ask that question.
What can I say? I am what I am becoming. Does that give you enough of
I
an
am who I
answer?
am becoming. That's deep. Yeah.
You know, I think, how can I put this? We all have selves. We all have identities. We all have different roles that we have to play at different times. We all are different people, moment to moment, depending on the circumstances, depending on the situations. You know, we tick boxes in the forms, and this is our identity, but it doesn't actually say anything about who it is and who we are. You know, black is a multitude of different things. You know, so I think also as well, I think anyone who's the same person that today as they were 10 years ago has lived a wasted life. I don't think that you really stay who you are. You know, there are things about you that are who you are, but I don't think. I think if I was to divide myself, like Deborah Knight is a human being having an experience just like everybody else. I don't think it can be anything more than that. And if you really wanted to hone it down, I'd probably say that Deborah Knight's the girl who doesn't want to be put in a box.
Okay. Well, that's a good summary. So what motivates you?
Love.
Oh, love what motivates you.
Love motivates me in everything that I do. I love humanity. I love people. I love who they are. I love who they can be. I love their potential. I love everything about humanity. You know, it's the contrast. I know that there will be good with bad, and I know that everyone isn't going to be everything you expect them to be. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what motivates me is love. I love people. You know.
Well, I have nobody said that one before. And it's the easiest thing. The thing is, love is so easy, isn't it?
I think we take it for granted.
We take it for granted, and love doesn't mean that it's all smooth sailing. It has its challenges, but it's about overcoming those challenges and still loving the same way, isn't it?
You learn.
Yes.
You learn. If you're motivated by love, you learn. Yeah. You know? And the one thing it stops you from doing is like, I don't say that everybody should go out in the world and do something great. You know, sometimes I just think that some people could just stop making things worse. Yeah. And if you have love, it makes that easier.
Yeah, it stops you making some things worse at least. So what's been your biggest hurdle?
Life.
It's all with one word. Love, life, people, humanity.
But what has been my life? Like life assumptions, stereotypes, people. I'm a very, very private person and I am painfully shy, right? And yet I have to perform because I have had my parents have been in a public life, you know, and it's this expectation. And I think it's the fact that because people see a newspaper article, they think they know who I am. It's that has been my biggest hurdle because I walk into a room and I'm overcoming everybody's assumptions, black, white, pink or green. I'm overcoming their assumptions before I even get an opportunity to open up my mouth. Yeah, people have already decided who I am, how I'm going to act, who I'm going to be, what I am. Yeah, without even giving me the opportunity to speak. That's been my biggest hurdle.
But what do you think people, like how I introduced you as Councillor Knight's daughter, what do you think the assumptions are that when you get that title?
I can only say what life has been like or what it's been felt like for me. People don't think that I know what it's like to struggle.
I see. Okay, they think you're a privileged child.
Yeah, like I've got some kind of entitlement. You know, I grew up. My father worked on the British Rail, and my mum was a home help. My dad was studying for the Open University and doing shifts at night. My mum was working 3 jobs. Yeah, all of my clothes till the age of 18 were hand-me-downs from my 3 older cousins. You know, people used to call me a tramp when I was at school, but it was okay because I'm Councillor Knight's daughter. I'm living with privilege, so you can rip me apart in every way you want. That was my experience. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, because people think that you look at a person, well, you're okay. You're okay because you live in your own house and I live over here in this house. So because you're living over there, your life must be perfect. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
You know? So I'm dealing with whatever challenges I'm dealing with. And then I can't even have a conversation with somebody about them because my problems can never be big, no matter how bad they are, because I'm Councillor Knight's daughter and the doors just open for me and people roll out red carpets and everywhere I go.
So they make these assumptions.
Right. And you know, things sometimes can be hard, they can be big. My mum's been disabled since I was 8 years old and I've been her primary carer, right? That's not easy. you know, and you're trying to explain to people why I can't go here, why I can't go, because I have responsibilities, right? And you can go out and you can party, and I've got these other things to do. You don't know my life. You don't know anything about me. And that's the thing I think upsets me, is just the fact that you don't know me, you know? And people put these little snide, cutting comments, right? And they don't realise that. They think that it's okay, it's allowed, because you can punch down because they've got me on a pedestal. But I don't even own a space to stand in. So most of these people are in a better situation than I am in, and they're punching me down, and they're taking away my opportunities, and they're tripping me up, or they're getting on my bus and getting to where they want to get to, and then cutting my tyres because it's allowed, because I'm Councillor Knight's daughter. But you don't know what I had to go through to get where I am. How many people are working 110 hours a week for nothing, right? How many people go without electricity, go without food, they want to make this work because they want to prove that this community is that shining star. They don't need to have that bad reputation. I want to show them, look at these are the people that raised me, these are the people I'm working with, these are the people that are making all these extraordinary things happen. And to somehow be able to push through and highlight that to other people, I've had to make massive sacrifices, and then people are still kicking me from behind when I'm the one that's picking them up. But it's okay, because I'm Councillor Knight's daughter, and that has been my biggest hurdle.
I can imagine.
I have never been seen.
Frustrating.
I just would love people to actually just see me. It's like earlier on this year, I lost a hell of a lot of weight because I was really, really ill, and I found a massive mass underneath my left breast. And it was horrific for, you know, because I don't know what that was. I didn't know what was going to happen, you know, and I was terrified. You know, and it turned out all it was a broken rib that I hadn't noticed, and it had healed, you know. So I had these broken ribs, and like everybody knows, what's my newspaper caption? From victim to Queen's Award winner, right? That was how I was introduced to the world when I got the Win of the Winners, I think, or one of those awards, you know. And yeah, you know, I said to a few people, well, it's okay, it's just a broken rib. And it's like, how did that happen? And I was like, well, I was a victim of domestic violence. That's how it most likely happened. But because what I was going through was so extreme at that moment, and I didn't even notice. Right? That's what my life is. And that's why I say, like, people don't see me, because why do you think you needed to ask that question when you already know I'm a victim of domestic violence? It should have clicked in your head, you know.
But do you think they thought that you could have fallen, or?
They could have thought a lot of other things, right? But what I'm trying to say is, have some sensitivity and maybe not ask the question and go and wonder what it might be over there by yourself, because you know I'm a victim of domestic violence and you don't know what you might be triggering. Do you understand what I mean? Okay. I just like to say, see me. I see you. I try not to say something, because especially in this day and age, everybody's triggered by words.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm seeing you. And I'm understanding. I'm showing you compassion. I'm showing you empathy. Why can't I have that back? That's all that I'm really asking for. If I'm going to take the time to get to know who you are, don't assume you know who I am, and then ask flippant questions that really and truthfully, if you took a beat to think, you'd already be able to surmise the answer. And if you don't know the answer, right, not being funny, but you don't really care enough about me.
Yeah, it's just being nosy,
exactly.
Really, isn't it?
It's just that, you know, it's like the people when they're outside and they see something, and they little kids, and they're like, you know, you know, like see twins or triplets or whatever, and they'll be like, you know, are they natural? What does it matter to you, right? You're exposing this whole woman's secrets in the middle of Sainsbury's, right? And then you're going to walk out the door, but you've driven 5 minutes down the road, you can't remember that. But that woman has to answer all of those questions. And that's all that I mean when I'm like saying, like, see the people that are in front of you, have some compassion, have some empathy. Don't think that because you've heard this title and you've heard whisper, whisper, whisper from these people over there, but never had a conversation with me in my life, that you know me. Or that because you've heard this, that gives you the right to punch me down. Because you don't know what I'm dealing with in that moment. You don't know what my day's been like. You don't know what I've had to deal with. And whereas I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, you might have this going on. Just imagine that might be me too. No matter what title you have given me. Because like sometimes I say to people, Councillor Knight's daughter is my father's child, but my mother raised me. So that's the person who you need to know. You know? And
well, I'm sorry I actually called you.
No! Oh my God! Me and you go back too far for me to take offence at that. You know, how long? You've known me for too long. You know, if I was going to have a problem, I know when it's going to come up. There are certain places, certain times it's going to be like, it's going to come up. But you know what, me and you is cool. It's like, it's not about that. It's not about that, really. You know, those people who know, they know. Yeah, you don't need to feel no way about that.
So let me see what your next one is. So how do you manage challenges? How do you overcome challenges?
Now that, I don't know if that's something I want to say on this interview. How do I manage this? I know who I am.
Okay.
And I think that's it. And I'm rooted in that belief. How can I put this? I've been knocked down enough and got up enough to know that whatever happens next, I'm going to get back up. Yeah, life is literally 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. Right? We all see it on Instagram. We all know the stories. Yeah, but it is true. Yeah, it's come so much part of this quote world, but that really is the reality of it. It's like this: all things exist, and if you judge them as good or bad, that's when you run into difficulty. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a Teo. I'm sure they have an example of this in all the other kind of cultures around the world. But there's this tale one about the old farmer. And it basically is, he's farming on his fields one day and a wild horse comes and joins his flock. And his neighbour comes and he says to him, yeah, right? So, you know, you're lucky.
But they might not know. So continue the story. Because I think it's brilliant. It's object referral, isn't it?
Yeah. It's basically... So the neighbour says, how lucky are you that you've got this wild horse? And the old farmer says, maybe. The next day, the horse runs away. And the neighbour comes and he says, oh, how unfortunate that your horse ran away. And he says, like, maybe. The next day, the horse returns with 6 other horses. The neighbour says, how lucky is that? You know, the old farmer says, maybe. The next day, his son goes out riding on trying to break in the horses, gets thrown off the horse and breaks his leg. The neighbour's like, how unlucky is that your son went out and broke his leg? And the old farmer says, maybe. The next day, a war breaks out in the country and the army officers come to recruit young men, and the young man is lying up in bed because his leg is broken. And the neighbour comes back and he says to him, oh, how lucky that was that your son broke his leg. And the old farmer says, maybe. And that is basically, you can carry on that story forever and ever. It is literally, you know, all things exist. And if you determine that this is good or this is bad, that becomes the problem. Just, it exists, and you have to understand the contrast. You can't have a rainbow without the rain. You can't have a crest without a wave. You can't have a peak without a valley. Everything is contrast. That bad is good and good is bad. They're just at opposite ends of the spectrum, 2 sides of the same coin. And that is how I manage obstacles and hurdles, because I just see them for what they are. They exist, and they either exist for me to go in this direction or for me to go in that direction, but it always exists for my soul to expand, for me to grow, for me to develop, for me to whatever it is. And I truly believe that I am to live my happily ever after. I believe that every single human being on this planet is to live the happily ever after. So even if this thing knocks me down, I believe that's part of the journey.
Okay, and you know, as you were talking, I don't even know what came into my why this came into my head. But I thought about the angelica route that you gave me. And it was instrumental in me starting to do my own teas, because before you gave me that angelica route, I was dependent on somebody's garden to get the stuff. And because I wasn't seeing that person, I felt as though that tea shop was going to just fall apart. Okay. But when you gave me that angelica route, and I started making teas for that, from that route, it made me realise I can get lots of other routes and lots of other things. So how come you have that angelica route?
Ever since I was young, herbs. From when I was a child, I've always grown herbs in the garden. And it's always been that. It's always been a massive interest in mine. You know, my mum is always, she loves the garden. My mum's an avid gardener. But it was always plants that were for purpose, for healing, for nutrition, for health, whatever. You know, it's going back to the old days in the Caribbean, and everything's all about bush and whatever. And I was raised by my elders, you know. When I was young, you know, I've always been with the St Kitts Nevis Friends Association, and I always hung around with the elders, and they're always giving you catch a cold, you got this bush, you know, you have a headache, there's another bush, it's alcalada, bay rum, you know, it was that. And I think also as well, because I've always had issues with my skin, and I never got on well with commercial soaps, you know, and so I started bathing in Himalayan rock salt, Dead Sea salt, Epsom salts, and botanicals, you know, and so growing my own herbs and things in the garden, I was able to make my own blends of everything that I knew were completely natural, and like using things like lye and glycerin because they're better for me, you know, and I want it to be 100% natural and naturally mine. And so literally from when I was like 17, 18, I've been researching herbs and stuff. And you also have to remember my mum's had a debilitating disease as well, you know, so my mum was supposed to be in a wheelchair many, many, many years ago. And so I've watched her navigating her way and like what things help her and what heals her and those kind of things. So all that, it's the we were athletes too, and that also makes a massive difference because you're always looking at your health and your fitness and your nutrition and all of that. So growing up with like running and like athletics and all that sort of thing as well, like, you know, I'm following my two young I'm the youngest of my two big brothers who are going out and they're training, and like, you know, my brother was running for England and you're not allowed to take a paracetamol, right? So it was introducing me to what was good for my body, what was bad for my body, what was healthy, you know, and so I've always had that. And as time went on, I started using oils for various different things. I used botanicals for things. I made teas. I put things in food, and it was just like little things that I knew, like garlic clearing out my blood, turmeric for my brain, and it just became
a way of life.
Yeah, and so by the time it's now, it's just like, oh yeah, here, have a plant, you know, and it does a lot. Like angelica is very good for so many different things.
I researched it. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. But it was the pinnacle. It was actually that stepping stone that kind of encouraged me to do my own brand of tea. So thanks for that.
No, that's good. That's a good thing. I encourage people to drink your tea. Anything that is natural, stay away from all this stuff, right? Just natural, and water is good, right?
That's definitely true. So what would you say is your weakness? And we've got 15. Okay. What would you say is your weakness, and what would you say is your strength?
My weakness? Wow. How long you got?
We've got 15 minutes.
Everything is my weakness. I have a childlike naivety, and I also have a core issue of betrayal. Yeah.
Okay.
And those two things are always constantly butting heads, you know. Yeah, my weakness is people. My weakness is probably kindness. I know what to do with abuse and anger and those, but show me kindness. That I'm like, because, you know, when people betray you, that's what they use.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah.
And so it makes it very, very difficult for me even now to like
trusting.
Yeah. I can't. I'm not sure. You know, and that would be my weakness, and I think my strength is knowing myself. I know who I am.
Okay.
And that is probably the only strength that I need, really.
Okay.
I know who I am, and nobody can define me, and that is my strength.
Wow. So, do you have any affirmations you would like to leave for our viewers?
Yeah. My favourite one will be, I am to live my happily ever after. That is the one that I think people should say. I did try to be, because I tried to get people to love themselves like their life depends on it, because it really does. And I used to try to have people look in the mirror and like just say that, and I realised that how hard that is. But as childlike as it sounds, I am to live my happily after is probably the closest to the truth of reality, because life is happening for you, and they have done everything within their power to set up systems within systems within systems to make it feel like life is something that is happening to you, and then you are blamed that it's happening because of you. But the reality is, life is happening for you. It's just, it speaks the language of emotion, and we've been taught that emotions don't matter. But if we're kept in a continual state of anger, fear, anxiety, worry, then we are creating realities that have that as their foundation. We are attracting more situations, people and circumstances into our lives, because vibration matches vibration. So if each cell of your body is vibrating fear, then you're always going to be in a circumstance that brings fear, you know. And I think it's important that if you can understand that life is happening for you and you are worthy.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing to remember. You are worthy, and as such, you are to live your happily ever after. And just saying that to yourself, I am to live my happily ever after. Just feel how good it feels.
Yeah, you look like a little girl, you know.
Because what does it say? We all did Sunday school. You observe the kingdom of heaven as a child.
Yeah.
That's the way that you've got to do it. You've got to be adventurous. You've got to be curious. No, you've got to. Everything's got to have awe and wonder and be filled with magic, because it is. It's just the magic's been removed from us. We only focus on the form, and we've forgotten all the formless, and that's where all the magic is. But it's like life is happening for us, and it's a gift. It's just been rebranded in a way that has left us feeling like we're out here all alone without any direction, and there's just all this stuff being thrown on us. But the reality of the situation is life is a gift. It's for us to enjoy, and we keep surrendering our power because we are being told we have none. Yeah, we are made to feel powerless, not because we are powerless, but because we are being restricted in every single which way. We're not allowed joy, and the reason we're not allowed joy because joy is the frequency of creation. Yeah, I firmly and I strongly believe, you know, that we are co-creators, you know, and I firmly believe in the eternal oneness of this duality, you know, of the creator and the created. Like, we are two sides of the same coin, and literally, you know, we can create our reality. Thoughts are things, just as words are entities, you know, they are real just because we've been taught they're not. But think about the words you say immediately have an impact on your nervous system. Do. Right? That's how powerful they are. And they can say all they want about sticks and stones, but the reality is I'd rather someone threw sticks and stones at me than abuse me with their words.
Yeah, because they cut deep.
Right?
So how do you want to be remembered?
Oh.
Well, what would you want to be remembered for most?
My ability to love regardless.
Okay.
I think that's the most important. Love is the most important thing for me.
Yeah.
It just is. It just is. I think everything springs forth from that. And I think it's powerful in so many ways. And if I was going to be remembered for anything, I want to be remembered by my ability to love. Not because I want to be remembered, but if you remember me in that way, then you will remember to love yourself.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful, Deborah. And you've got this glow and this happiness and this innocence and everything all wrapped up in one. That really makes you beautiful.
Oh,
so
thank
you so much for the interview.
Oh, that's so touching. No, you just touched me off so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, wow.